Hare Krishna.
Hare, welcome. Right as we hit the go button, the old camera decided to go as well.
Alright, I just fill you in. It's Canto 2, Chapter 4.
Sorry about the close-up.
Text 20. The chapter is the process of creation, when Russell Square out the Prabhupada would chant his japa. Prabhupada would chant his japa in his heart. And now we're going to read from his books once.
Great.
Alright, let me just say the invocation.
Yeah, say it.
Oh, Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oh,
God.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Oh, my Lord.
Text 20. It's alright, man.
It's crooked like anything. Disturbing. Okay.
May Lord Sri Krishna, who is the worshipful Lord of all devotees, the protector and glory of all the kings like Andaka and Vrishni of the Yadu dynasty, the husband of all goddesses of fortune, the director of all sacrifices, and therefore the leader of all living entities, the controller of all intelligence, the proprietor of all planets, spiritual and material, and the supreme incarnation on the earth, the supreme all in all, be merciful unto me. Since Sukadeva Swami is one of the prominent Gata Vyalikas, those who are freed from all misconceptions, he therefore expresses his own realized perception of Lord Shri Krishna as being the sum total of all perfection, personality of Godhead. Everyone is seeking the favour of the goddess of fortune, but people do not know that Lord Shri Krishna is the beloved husband of all goddesses of fortune. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that the Lord, in his transcendental abode, Goloka Vrindavan, is accustomed to herding the Surabi cows, and is served there by hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune. All these goddesses of fortune are manifestations of his transcendental pleasure potency, Ladini Shakti, in his internal energy, and when the Lord manifested himself on this earth, he partially displayed the activities of his pleasure potency in his Rasa Leela, just to attract the conditioned souls who all are after the phantasmagoria pleasure potency in degraded sex enjoyment. The pure devotees of the Lord, like Sukadeva Swami, who was completely detached from the abominable sex life of the material world, discussed this act of the Lord's pleasure potency, certainly not in relation to sex, but to relish a transcendental taste inconceivable to the mundaners who are after sex life. Sex life in the mundane world is the root cause of being conditioned by the shackles of illusion, and certainly Sukadeva Swami was never interested in the sex life of the mundane world. Nor does the manifestation of the Lord's pleasure potency have any connection with such degraded things. But Chaitanya was a strict sannyasi, so much so that he did not allow any woman to come near him, not even to bow down and offer respects. He never even heard the prayers of the devi dasis offered in the temple of Jagannath, because the sannyasi is forbidden to hear songs sung by the fair sex. Yet even in the rigid position of a sannyasi, he recommended the mode of worship preferred by the gopis of Vrindavan as the topmost loving service possible to be rendered to the Lord. And Srimati Radharani is the principal head of all such goddesses of fortune, and therefore she is the pleasure counterpart of the Lord and is not different from Krishna.
Got little doggies wandering up to us. Hey Lisa, how's it going?
Hi Lisa.
Smell something good. So it's probably, although we were kind of giggling away, it's not giggleable. I mean, the point being that obviously, in general, sex life is probably, although one sense you could say glorious, but it can be a huge distraction and very entangling. Usually sex life leads to children and children to entangling. Not that they're not glorious, but it means it can be very distracting if you're trying to focus. And in general, in all the world's philosophies or religions, spiritual practices, there are those who are in one sense you could say renunciants are fully devoted or dedicated, and they just want to stay completely focused. So that's why this word sannyasi is being mentioned. So a sannyasi is a renunciant who basically gives up the idea of family life and just 100% dedicates themselves to the service of God. So like that. So the point being that Lord Chaitanya was a sannyasi, and therefore he needed to keep himself separate from the opposite sex so that he didn't become allured or distracted. So that's the idea. Having said all that, many of the greatest saints or sadhus or examples, even in Krishna consciousness, but to speak of other religions, are those who are married and have families, starting with the person who's hearing this narration at the moment that we're reading from, Parikshit Maharaj. He was a king, and he was also married and had children. His father and his grandfathers, they were also great kings, and they were married and they had children, and they were all notably very, very exalted persons. So it's not exactly an absolute thing, but it's understood that in general it can be a very distracting, alluring, and powerful energy in the material world that if not kept kind of under control or in check, can easily drag one away from their spiritual practice. So like that. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. So we'll keep reading. Anything you wanted to add? Didn't think so. In the Vedic rituals, there are recommendations for performing different types of sacrifice in order to achieve the greatest benefit in life. Such benedictions as the results of performing great sacrifices are, after all, favors given by the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. And the Lord, being the husband or lover of the goddess of fortune, is factually the Lord of all sacrifices also. He is the final enjoyer of all kinds of yajna. Therefore, Yagyapati is another name of Lord Vishnu. It is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita that everything be done for the Yagyapati. You hear the parrots? They've come to hear. Yagyapati, be done for the Yagyapati. Yagyatar karmana. For otherwise, one's acts will be the cause of conditioning by the law of material nature. Those who are not freed from the misconceptions, Vyalikam, perform sacrifices to please the minor demigods. But the devotees of the Lord know very well that Lord Krishna is the supreme enjoyer of all performances of sacrifice. Therefore, they perform Therefore, they perform the Sankirtan Yajna, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, which is especially recommended in this age of Kali. In Kali Yuga, performance of other types of sacrifice is not feasible due to insufficient arrangements and inexpert priesthood. So this is an important point. Again, the idea of sacrifices. Of course, when we hear this, myself, when I hear it, coming from Western culture, then I hear sacrifice and I think, some slain virgin on a marble with some knife, or sacrificing some animals onto an altar. But that's not the idea. Sacrifice, or the term yajna, it means an offering. It means that you sacrifice. There are so many things in life that are sacrificed. To give in charity is a sacrifice. You sacrifice money. To do voluntary service is a sacrifice of your time and your energy. To bring children into the world is a sacrifice of time and energy. So there's so many things that are a sacrifice where you give something up for a higher purpose. So the whole point is that all sacrifices, all things that we do as a sacrifice should be done for the higher purpose of service to God, because He is Yagyapati, Yagya meaning sacrifice and Pati meaning Lord. He is the Lord of sacrifices. So it means He is the ultimate person who rewards benefits as well. And then the last statement is that in the age that we live in now, which is known as the Iron Age of Kali Yuga, the Iron Age, this the only sacrifice that's allowed or recommended is the Sankirtan Yajna. So that means the communal chanting of the holy names. So that's why we do kirtan. San means all together, and kirtan means glorification of Lord. So Sankirtan means when we come together and we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But we do it like with instruments, and we do it singing and dancing, and like on the Rath Yatra festival or in bhajans or sessions like that. So that is the yajna. And why? Because you're sacrificing your time, you're sacrificing your energy, you're sacrificing your voice and your life air for the benefit of Krishna, like that. Hope that makes sense. Anything you want to add?
I was sacrificing my hearing process.
Yes. Marriage is a big sacrifice.
It sure is.
It sure is. Okay, let's read.
We have information from the Bhagavad Gita 3, chapter 3, verses 10 and 11, that Lord Brahma, after giving rebirth to the conditioned souls within the universe, instructed them to perform sacrifices and to lead a prosperous life. With such sacrificial performances, the conditioned souls will never be in any difficulty in keeping body and soul together. Ultimately, they can purify their existence. They will find natural promotion into spiritual existence, the real identity of the living being. Under no circumstances should a conditioned soul ever give up the practice of sacrifice, charity, and austerity. The aim of all such sacrifices is to please the Yagyapati, the personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Lord is also Prajapati. According to the Katha Upanishad, the one Lord is the leader and maintainer of the innumerable living entities. The Lord is therefore called the Supreme Bhuta Brick, the maintainer of all living beings.
Living beings are proportionately endowed with intelligence in terms of their previous activities. All living beings are not equally endowed with the same quality of intelligence, because behind such development of intelligence is the control of the Lord, as declared in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15. As Paramatma, Super Soul, the Lord is living in everyone's heart, and from him only does one's power of remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness follow. Mata smirtir gyanam apohanam cha. One person can sharply remember past activities by the grace of the Lord, while others cannot. One is highly intelligent by the grace of the Lord, and one is a fool by the same control. Therefore, the Lord is Diyampati, or the Lord of intelligence. Diyam.
The conditioned souls strive to become lords of the material world. Everyone is trying to lord it over the material nature by applying his highest degree of intelligence. This misuse of intelligence by the conditioned soul is called madness. One's full intelligence should be applied to get free from the material clutches, but the conditioned soul, due to madness only, engages his full energy and intelligence in sense gratification, and to achieve this end of life he willfully commits all sorts of misdeeds. The result is that instead of attaining an unconditional life of full freedom, the mad conditioned soul is entangled again and again in different types of bondage in material bodies. Everything we see in the material manifestation is but the creation of the Lord. Therefore, he is the real proprietor of everything in the universe. The conditioned soul can enjoy a fragment of this material creation under the control of the Lord, but not self-sufficiently. That is the instruction in the Sri Upanishad. One should be satisfied with things awarded by the Lord of the universe. It is out of madness only that one tries to encroach upon another's share of material possessions.
Nice, succinct explanation of our entire philosophy. Very good. Nice to see your mother, Shirangavati.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for respecting us for sitting outside in the cold, chilly weather.
Yeah, it's cold.
It's not that cold, actually, but it's nice. It's actually kind of fresh.
It's really hot.
It's rough. Okay, the Lord of the universe, out of his causeless mercy upon the conditioned souls, descends by his own energy, Atma Maya, to reestablish the eternal relationship of the conditioned souls with him. He instructs all to surrender unto him instead of falsely claiming to be the enjoyers for a certain limit under his control. When he so descends, he proves how much greater is his ability to enjoy. And he exhibits his power of enjoyment by, for instance, marrying 16,000 wives at once. The conditioned soul is very proud of becoming the husband of even one wife. But, well, but the Lord laughs at this. The intelligent man can know who is the real husband. Factually, the Lord is the husband of all women in his creation, but a conditioned soul under the control of the Lord feels proud to be the husband of one or two wives. Who would want to? I mean, really? One, more than enough.
All these qualifications as the different types of pati mentioned in this verse are meant for Lord Sri Krishna and Sukadeva Goswami. And Sukadeva Goswami has therefore especially mentioned the pati and gati of the Yadu dynasty. The members of the Yadu dynasty knew that Lord Sri Krishna is everything, and all of them intended to return to Lord Krishna after he had finished his transcendental pastimes on the earth. The Yadu dynasty was annihilated by the will of the Lord because its members... I lost my place because I was looking at the dog. The Yadu dynasty was annihilated by the will of the Lord because its members had to return home with the Lord. The annihilation of the Yadu dynasty was a material show created by the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, the Lord and the members of the Yadu dynasty are all eternal associates. The Lord is therefore the guide of all devotees, and as such, Sukadeva Goswami offered him due respects with love-laden feelings. Stop. You need to stop. Stop that. Oh. Freaking leave. Stop. Wait.
Crazy dog, man. Okay. It's all going off here today. So, here he comes. Hello, puppy.
No, don't call it. Oh, Lord. Don't you think it's going to kill me? It's a dog.
Hello, doggy. Go to mommy. Okay. All right. Something smells good over here.
Yeah, he's just our shopping bag now.
Okay, text 21. Good Lord, if we get through one whole verse, we'll be doing good today. It is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who gives liberation by thinking of his lotus feet at every second, following in the footsteps of authorities. The devotee in trance can see the absolute truth. The learned mental speculators, however, think of him according to their whims. May the Lord be pleased with me. Purport. The mystic yogis, after a strenuous effort to control the senses, may be situated in a trance of yoga just to have a vision of the supersoul within everyone. But the pure... See, the lights just came on. That's so cool. Within everyone, but the pure devotee, simply by remembering the Lord's lotus feet at every second, at once becomes established in real trance, because by such realization, his mind and intelligence are completely cleansed of the disease of material enjoyment. The pure devotee thinks himself fallen into the ocean of birth and death, and incessantly prays to the Lord to lift him up. He only aspires to become a speck of transcendental dust at the lotus feet of the Lord. So nice. The pure devotee, by the grace of the Lord, absolutely loses all attraction from material enjoyment, and to keep free from contamination, he always thinks of the lotus feet of the Lord. King Kulashekar, a great devotee of the Lord, prayed. Amazing prayers, King Kulashekar. Krishna Tvadiya Pada Pankaj Panjarantam Adyaiva me vishatu manasaraja hamsaha. Pranaprayana samaye kapavata pitai. Kantavarodana vidao smaranam kutaste. My Lord Krishna, I pray that the swan of my mind may immediately sink down to the stems of the lotus feet of your Lordship and be locked in their network. Otherwise, at the time of my final breath, when my throat is choked up with cough, how will it be possible to think of you? Powerful. My throat's always choked up with cough.
There is an intimate relationship between the swan and the lotus stem. So the comparison is very appropriate. Without becoming a swan or paramahamsa, one cannot enter into the networked stems of the lotus feet of the Lord. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, the mental speculators, even by dint of learned scholarship, cannot even dream of the absolute truth by speculating over it for eternity. The Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to such mental speculators. And because they cannot enter into the networked stems of the lotus feet of the Lord, all mental speculators differ in their conclusions, and at the end they make a useless compromise by saying, as many conclusions, as many ways, according to one's own inclination, yatarucham. But the Lord is not like a shopkeeper trying to please all sorts of customers in the mental speculator exchange. The Lord is what He is, an absolute personality of Godhead, and He demands absolute surrender unto Him only. The pure devotee, however, by following the ways of the previous acharyas or authorities, can see the Supreme Lord through the transparent medium of a bona fide spiritual master. Anupasyanti. The pure devotee never tries to see the Lord by mental speculation, but he sees Him by following in the footsteps of the acharyas. Mahajana yena gata sapanta.
Mahajano yena gata sapanta.
Alright.
We must close that off.
Therefore, there is no difference of conclusions amongst the Vaishnava acharyas regarding the Lord and the devotees. Lord Chaitanya asserts that the living entity Jiva is eternally the servitor of the Lord, and that he is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord. This tattva of Lord Chaitanya's is shared by all four sampradayas of the Vaishnava school, all accepting eternal servitude to the Lord even after salvation. And there is no authorized Vaishnava acharya who may think of the Lord and himself as one.
Smells that other dog. We're like on the path of the dog sense.
Yeah, dog sense.
Nonsense dog sense. This humbleness of the pure devotee who is 100% engaged in his service puts the devotee of the Lord in a trance by which to realize everything. Because to the sincere devotee of the Lord reveals Himself as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10:10. The Lord being the Lord of intelligence in everyone, even in the non-devotee, favors his devotee with proper intelligence so that automatically the pure devotee is enlightened with the factual truth about the Lord and His different energies. The Lord is revealed not by one's speculative power or by one's verbal jugglery over the absolute truth. Rather, He reveals Himself to a devotee when he is fully satisfied by the devotee's service attitude.
Just taking photos of us.
Of us?
Yeah.
Shukadev Goswami is not a mental speculator or compromiser of the theory of as many ways, as many conclusions. Now, I've never heard of this. I have to look this up. As many ways, as many conclusions. I think, that's the kind of thing that's like, any path will get you there. Well, if you're going nowhere, then any path will get you there. If you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there. But anyway, rather he prays to the Lord only, invoking His transcendental pleasure. That is the way of knowing the Lord. Very interesting. Let's see what the next one's all about. A little long. There, one more.
Okay. Text 22. May the Lord, who is the beginning of the creation, amplify the potent knowledge of Brahma from within his heart and inspired him with full knowledge of creation of his own self, and who appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahma, be pleased with me. Purport. As we have already discussed herein before, the Lord as the super soul of all living beings, Brahma, to the insignificant ant, endowed with the required knowledge potent in every living being. A living being is sufficiently potent to possess knowledge from the Lord in the proportion of 50-64, or 78% of the full knowledge of time. Since the living being is constitutionally part and parcel of the Lord, he is unable to assimilate all the knowledge that the Lord possesses himself. In the conditioned state, the living being is subject to forget everything after a change of body known as death. This potent knowledge is again inspired by the Lord from within the heart of every living being, and it is known as the awakening of knowledge, for it is comparable to awakening from sleep or unconsciousness. This awakening of knowledge is under the full control of the Lord, and therefore we find in the practical world different grades of knowledge in different persons. This awakening of knowledge is neither an automatic nor a material interaction. The supply source is the Lord himself, Niyamati, or even Brahma is also subject to this regulation of the supreme controller, creator.
Remember that word from before, Diyampati? What was that? Anyone remembers? Diyampati? Do you remember? Bhava Bhakti Pati? Diyampati. I remember because it seemed interesting. It was the Lord of Intelligence. Diyam. Diya means diwa, like Diwali. Diya.
Diya, like knowledge.
Usually means life. Knowledge is like an extrapolation. I mean, but anyway, yeah. Is it a new paragraph?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, in the beginning. In the beginning. In the beginning, where is it? In the beginning of the creation, Brahma is born first without any father and mother, because before Brahma there were no other living beings. Brahma is born from the lotus which grows from the abdomen of the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and therefore he is known as Aja. This Brahma, or Aja, is also a living being, part and parcel of the Lord. But being the most pious devotee of the Lord, Brahma is inspired by the Lord to create, subsequent to the main creation by the Lord, through the agency of material nature. Therefore, neither the material nature nor Brahma is independent of the Lord. The material scientist can merely observe the reactions of the material nature without understanding the direction behind such activities. So nice. As a child can see the action of electricity without any knowledge of the powerhouse engineer. This imperfect knowledge of the material scientist is due to Prabhupada's famous line, poor fund of knowledge. The Vedic knowledge was therefore first impregnated with Brahma, and it appears that Brahma distributed the Vedic knowledge, So even Lord Brahma did book distribution. He distributed the Vedic knowledge. Brahma is undoubtedly the speaker of the Vedic knowledge, but actually he was inspired by the Lord to receive such transcendental knowledge, as it directly descends from the Lord. The Vedas are therefore called Apurusheya, who are not imparted by any created being. Therefore the creation of the Lord was there, Narayana Parovyakthat, and therefore the words spoken by the Lord are vibrations of transcendental sound. There is a gulf of difference between the two qualities of sound, namely Prakrita and Aprakrita. Prakrita and Aprakrita. The physicist can deal only with the Prakrita sound, or sound vibrated in the material sky, and therefore we must know that the Vedic sounds recorded in symbolic expressions cannot be understood by anyone within the universe unless and until one is inspired by the vibration of supernatural aprakrita sound, which descends in the chain of the cyclic succession from the Lord to Brahma, from Brahma to Narada, and from Narada to Vyasa, and so on. No mundane scholar can translate or reveal the true import of the Vedic mantras, hymns. They cannot be understood unless one is inspired or initiated by the authorized spiritual master. The original spiritual master is the Lord himself, and the succession comes down through the source of parampara, as clearly stated in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Verse Evam Param Evam Parampara Praptam Imam Rajarshio Vidu Sakalinaha Mahat. What's the last line? Sakalinaha Mahat Yogo Nashta Parantapa. That's it is correct. 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So unless one receives the transcendental knowledge from the authorized parampara, one should be considered useless. Nishpalamataha. Even though one may be greatly qualified in the mundane advancements of arts and science, or riding motorcycles, which make a very loud and disgusting noise, especially when you're in the park trying to read Bhagavatam. Okay, next.
Sukadeva Goswami is praying to the Lord by dint of being inspired from within by the Lord, so that he could rightly explain the facts and figures of creation as inquired by Maharaj Parikshit. The spiritual master is not a theoretical speculator like the mundane scholar, but is Shrutiyam Brahmanishtam, expert in understanding the Vedic conclusion in disciplic succession, and therefore constantly engaged in the service of the Lord.
That whole last sentence didn't exist here. Very nice. Very nice. Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. Very good, very good. Okay, thank you all for tuning in. Please read Srimad Bhagavatam, the source of salvation in the age of Kali. Here we have some nice copies with Radhalandanishwar on the front. If anyone's interested, please let us know. We'll be happy to send some copies to you. Otherwise, take care. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.